The general's mansion stood high on the hill, surrounded by thick iron gates and walls that whispered stories of authority, discipline, and perfection. Inside, however, chaos ruled. 4 children, each with eyes full of mischief and hearts weighed by loss, had driven away every maid, nanny, and tutor who dared step through those doors. Their mother had passed away 2 years ago, leaving General Raymond to juggle raising them and leading an army base. He was a man who could silence a room with one glance, but when it came to his own children, he was utterly powerless. Every morning, the youngest, Lily, would cry until her throat hurt. The twins, Max and Mia, played cruel tricks on anyone trying to help. And the eldest, 10-year-old Ethan, had turned cold, refusing to speak more than a few words. They were smart, but broken. By the time the 12th maid quit, throwing her apron down and muttering, "No one can survive a day with those kids," the mansion had become more of a battlefield than a home. That's when he showed up. Daniel Harper, a single dad, tall, quiet, with eyes that carried both sadness and strength. He arrived not in a fancy suit, but in a plain shirt and worn shoes. The agency had sent him by mistake. They thought Harper was a woman's name. But when the general's assistant tried to turn him away, Daniel simply said, "I'm not here to be a maid. I'm here to help." Something about his tone, firm but calm, made the assistant pause. Against her better judgment, she led him inside. The kids were waiting like little soldiers of chaos. Mia had poured syrup on the floor, Max had a bucket of water balanced above the doorway, Ethan stood at the stairs with his arms crossed, and Lily was on the floor crying because her doll had disappeared. When Daniel walked in, the bucket fell, right onto his head. The syrup made his shoes stick to the marble floor, and Lily screamed louder just to test him. But he didn't yell. He didn't flinch. He wiped his face, looked up at the 4 kids, and said with a small, crooked smile, "You missed a spot." The twins blinked in shock. No one had ever joked back. Then Daniel turned to Lily, crouched down, and gently handed her a small, wooden doll from his pocket. "You mean like this one?" he asked. Her sobs stopped. It wasn't her doll, but it looked just like it. "Made it for my daughter when she was your age," he whispered. Lily sniffled. "Where is she?" Daniel's eyes softened. "Heaven," he said quietly. Something in that word broke the ice. By lunch, the twins were showing him their secret base, under the stairs. By dinner, Lily was sitting beside him, eating vegetables for the first time in weeks. Ethan, though silent, had started watching him closely, like he was trying to understand something about this stranger who didn't scare easy. When General Raymond came home that night, he found the house quiet. No screaming, no broken furniture, just laughter coming from the kitchen. Daniel was cooking spaghetti while the kids took turns stirring sauce and setting the table. For the first time in years, the general saw his children smile. He stood there, frozen, as Mia proudly said, "Dad, we made dinner, with Mr. Daniel." The general didn't say much, but his eyes gave away what words couldn't. Gratitude and disbelief. Days turned into weeks. Daniel didn't treat the kids like soldiers or brats, he treated them like kids. He taught Max how to fix a toy car. He showed Mia how to use her energy for art. He helped Lily sleep without nightmares by reading her bedtime stories about brave girls who weren't afraid of thunder. And Ethan, Daniel saw his silence not as rebellion but as pain. One night, when Ethan was drawing alone, Daniel sat beside him and said, "You know, my daughter stopped talking. 2 after her mom died. I never forced her. I just listened. Want me to listen?" Ethan didn't speak. But after a long pause, he handed Daniel his sketchbook. The first page had a drawing, his family. 4 kids and a father, but the mother's face was always erased. Daniel put a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You draw her again when you're ready," he said softly. From that day, Ethan began to open up. Slowly. But peace didn't last forever. One afternoon, General Raymond overheard a few of his officers gossiping. A single dad working as a maid in his mansion. Has he lost his mind? They mocked. Their laughter stung him, not for himself, but for his pride. That evening, he called Daniel to his office. "I appreciate what you've done," the general said stiffly. "But this arrangement, it's not appropriate. You'll receive double pay for the month. I'll find someone else." Daniel looked at him calmly. "Sir, with all due respect, those kids don't need a maid. They need a parent." The general's jaw tightened. Are you implying I'm not one? Daniel didn't answer, he just turned and left. The next morning, the house was quiet again. The laughter was gone. Lily cried for Daniel. Max refused to eat. Ethan ripped up his drawings. Even the twins' pranks stopped. The general stood helpless, realizing too late that the man he'd dismissed wasn't just a helper, he was the glue that had started to heal their broken hearts. He found Daniel 2 days later, volunteering at a community center, teaching kids how to fix bicycles. The general didn't come as a soldier that day. He came as a father. Mr. Harper, he began, his voice softer than ever, I made a mistake. My kids need you, and maybe, so do I. Daniel smiled faintly. They don't need me, General. They need you, but I'll help you learn how to be there again. And he did. Months passed. The mansion became a home. Daniel stayed, not as a maid, but as the family's tutor and friend. The general learned to loosen his grip on perfection, and the kids learned to trust again. One sunny afternoon, Lily ran to Daniel holding her old doll, the wooden one he'd given her, and said, Mr. Daniel, can I call you uncle now? He smiled, eyes glistening. I'd like that very much. As the camera pans to the family having dinner together, laughter echoing through the once lonely halls, the narrator's voice returns. Sometimes, healing doesn't come from those who look perfect, it comes from those who've been broken too. If this story touched your heart, take a second to like this video, subscribe for more real stories that remind us, love doesn't always come where we expect it, but it always finds a way.